Hey yo, it's your boy Ancient Albatross here again with the Cypher Unlimited crew. We have our usual suspects of AD or Alpha Dean. We have Spigs18 or Anthony. And just as a quick reminder, if you haven't already, be sure to follow us here on Twitch and subscribe to us over on YouTube. It is a great help to our channel, and we would not have made it as far as we have without your support, and we greatly thank everyone. But without further ado, Dean, what are we doing here tonight?
We're talking do's and don'ts. The do's and don'ts of becoming a GM Cypher System. You know, everybody has their different things that they want to talk about or things. So from us to you, this is what we consider our top 6 do's and don'ts. And
yeah, this topic came up a couple of times, especially in the new GM and GM section of our Discord server. So I figured we'll take a crack at it as best we could, give the best advice we can. You know, what we consider good advice and what pitfalls you should avoid when you first starting out with the Cypher System as a GM or a player. Actually, I think a lot of these advice that the top 6 and do's and don'ts we're gonna give could transcend not only Cypher System but GMing in general. Yeah, you know, we came up with this list collectively. But like always, feel free to join in the chat with your suggestions and your opinions. We always say this in almost every video, but your guys come up with better stuff than we do. So, you know, yeah, put it in the chat. So let's start out with the top 6 do's, because my gut feeling is that the don'ts are going to be more interesting than the do's to chat about with your guys. So we'll start off, and with no particular order, the top 6 do's when running the Cypher System. Which one of you guys want to read the first one?
go for it, Al.
All right, let me pull up the notes here. I was looking at the chat. All right, so we have here at number 1 for the do's for new GMs in the Cypher System, and that is have a list of suggested foci for your campaign that players can choose from, and decide early what books the players are allowed to choose from when creating characters. And that's kind of a big one. We kind of see new GMs when they, or I guess GMs as a whole, because I'm also guilty of this, even when I was just starting out, but they open up the entire book or multiple books for all the options, whether it be the focus, descriptors, blah, 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 all that stuff. And that can be extremely overwhelming when you're brand new. And having a narrower foci list definitely helps you tool your game a little bit better, make things a little more manageable for newer players, or newer GMs, I should say.
Yeah, and if you're not running a pre-written adventure, it also helps you with your prep. Like, you know how you do a basic prep before you even pitch your idea for your campaign, for your game, whatever it is. If you know you have a certain specific list of foci that the players, when they go into character creation, can pick from, you know what you can build your initial starting point adventure around, because you know what the player characters are capable of.
I was just going to say, you know, and Ray Crazy Star brought it up too, the campaign design sheet. It's, you know, it's a great tool. Use it. It will help you. It'll make your life a lot easier. The other thing that that does is help you curate your setting or your game in of itself, especially if you're going to do a one-shot, or if you're doing, you know, even a campaign. And then you can expand upon it as time goes on. So it's not like it has to be set in stone to no longer be, you know, that, you know, other things won't be an option either. But it gives you a good starting place, and it keeps you from being overwhelmed with, you know, what do they call it? Choice paralysis happen.
Yeah, oh yeah, it prevents the players from having that. Also, if you have a set list of suggested foci, and when the players first sit down to play the game, like to sit down and create their character, they can get a general understanding of the tone and pace and feel of the game that you're trying to run. You know, like if you remove, and a good example would be if you remove all the fantastical elements, you know, foci that have these fantastical early abilities, it lets the player know, oh, this game is going to be more grounded in reality. So it like sets their mindset. It has their mindset set for the type of game you want to run. Early on in my Cypher GMing career, and I know Al's had this issue, I would always open, just make whatever you want out of the book, right? And then you get this one character that's he chose a speaky, not powerful character. Then you have someone else that has like this super powerful foci, and then you have to balance it as a GM. But if you pull everything ahead of time and say, hey, look, this is the pace I'm going for, this is the tone I'm going for, and pick foci that or follow that tone, right? The players will see where you're heading to.
Right. And like I said before, it allows you to build that setting. So if you open the entire book up to players and you're running a Wild West setting, but you got, I don't know, employees magnetism, that would just kind of throw your game off. It wouldn't put you in the right frame of reference, or the rest of the players for what the game is supposed to be, unless you've got an explanation for that. And these are things that, as a new GM to Cypher, you want to start doing. You want to start realizing that you can curate your world, and your world can grow. Like Kedev called it, a build-up system versus it being, something you got to break apart and reorganize. So, good stuff.
And just as a twist on what we're talking about here, in chat, Aspiring Warlock Patron said, I've told my players to come to me with concepts and I'll help them choose foci. That's another way to do basically the same thing, just with a little more work on your end because you're having a discussion. But that's an awesome way to do it too. If you have the time to talk to your players about what they want to do, then that's also an excellent way to do it.
Yeah, we told this story many a times before when I was running a Wild West game and someone came with Bill's robots and we were like, it just doesn't work with the setting. It was a realistic Western game. Bill's robots doesn't work. We tried 100 different ways to make them pick another foci, and they were steadfast in choosing that foci. So I guess I think the end was we decided to part ways, which was, it's all good, it happens. But that prevents those, issues.
Wasn't it your game or was it my game that the guy wanted to play a robot and it was like a fantasy game and he was harping on being a freaking robot? Remember? He didn't want to be a golem. When we tried to say, okay, we can make you a golem type. No, he was specific. It
was also me. That was in the I forgot what, but that was like the 4-part first fantasy campaign we tried to run.
Yeah.
That's one of the people that love robots for some reason.
So.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why you have a suggested list of foci. Because it just makes it easier.
All right, so I'll go to our next one. Our next one on our list is have a list of prepared ciphers and artifacts you can access on the fly and share them early and often to get players accustomed to using them as an expendable resource. That's referring to ciphers, not artifacts, because artifacts aren't necessarily an expendable resource, but you do want them to use it, because, it can be fun to, use a GMI for a depletion roll, what happens on a depletion roll or whatever. So many different things that you can actually get away with in that respect. But a prepared list of ciphers is really good because also that's another one that you can customize and curate to your world, as opposed to using a random chart. You wouldn't want to roll want to roll a reality spike in a realistic game. If you're running like, I don't know, Fast and Furious, you wouldn't want a reality spike necessarily, to tear up the cars or crap like that. So I think that helps with your story and your storytelling.
I mean, you could still have a random chart, but you just create the random chart from your prepared ciphers.
You only put the ciphers on that random chart you want.
And another thing that does, not only does it help you, like, again, curate your setting, so to speak, because, you basically adjust what skills or, a thing's abilities are available to your players. I lost my train of thought. I completely lost my train of thought. Somebody else go. I lost midway through my sentence. It was gone.
GM Intrusions. No, me personally, the reason why I like having a random list of ciphers, one, it helps me know what I'm gonna allow the players to be capable of. So when I see a scene is heading in a certain direction and I think that they might need a certain boost or help, I could look at my random list and say, oh, okay, hey, next GM Intrusion, I can make them find this. Or if I see that the players are constantly using a specific type of cipher, I tend to want to give them different types of ciphers. So if I see my players are always using, combat ciphers, I'll go, okay, let me give them some non-combat ciphers to see how they interact with those. It's always, with me, it's always about making the narrative different and make the narrative go in different directions. And ciphers are a great way to do that. Because I always find as a player and watching other players as a GM, when you give them new and interesting ciphers, 9 out of 10 times they're going to come up with a way of using it that you didn't think of in the first place. So it makes the game interesting for myself, and it'll make the game interesting for your players.
Yeah.
Like, how can you help your players understand that they'll get more ciphers besides just having a random chart? You guys have any input on that?
One thing that I did in one game, I had ciphers actually be affected by the day. So every day their cipher, because it was when I ran the Dark Sun game, and basically what I did was, I would have a wild magic surge at random points in every 24-hour periods. When that wild magic surge happened, they all got basically it was a cipher, but it was a spell-like ability, but it would change every single time. And that was one way that they start getting used to the idea that, use it or lose it. Use it because more were coming, So it was cool because not only did it recharge, their maximum number of ciphers every day, but, it would also randomize what they got in the same breath.
And yeah, that really what it boils down to is giving them out more often, regardless of what system you put in place for it, or, Dean has a really interesting way of doing it, but it really boils down to just handing them more and more. They know that they're coming.
I think I was going to go on the way you're saying, Al, even if it's okay if the players haven't used their ciphers and you still give them more, because especially with new players, that's a way of showing them, hey, now you have to decide, okay? Your cipher limit is 3, and I'm giving the party 2 new ciphers. You're going to have to get rid of some, right? So it kind of mentally prepares the players to say, oh, snap, or oh, shit, I got to start using my ciphers because I just don't want to lose this resource for nothing.
Right, and that's excellent. That's an excellent way to do it as well. Because especially if you have it in a game too where they can't have no way to store ciphers, they have no way to get back to them. I like what Bright Crazy Star said. He says cipher loses a level every day in game. It would eventually wane to ash. I can see using that in a fantasy campaign. Just different ways of implementing it, or for whatever it is. I can see doing it in Numenera. Because Numenera would make sense with that. You take a cipher out of the area it's from, and every day it's away from that area, it loses potency. So yeah, it's a lot of ways to get players to wrap their brain around that these things will come. So if they're there, use them because cool stuff is coming.
I'll read the do number 3. This one's pretty simple. Keep a list of your players' current stats and take them into account when designing scenes or adventure concepts.
Yeah,
This is,
go ahead.
this is something that applies to any role-playing game, and when I first started GMing, I was guilty of this. You don't realize the powers your players are capable of, so you design a scene that someone has an ability or a skill that just completely bypasses it and puts the kibosh on whatever obstacle you were trying to create.
Yeah, I learned that during my early D&D days, second edition D&D days, because second edition was really kind of the first edition that gave rules where you could do things, for a lot of things. And if you didn't know those players' abilities and so on and so forth, yeah, they would wreck your whole game in 15 minutes, So I agree with Anthony 100% on that one.
I'm actually the one who proposed this one for the dues, and I wanted this to be more of a Cypher focused one. And the reason I have it here in relation to Cypher System is in other role playing games, and again, I haven't played that many, so the stats are mostly static and their abilities are mostly static until they level up or whatever. So that stuff you can sort of memorize, right? If you play enough with your players, you kind of know what's on their sheet, right? But with Cypher System, stats are always changing. It's a resource. So you want to be able to know where your players are sitting at. So you can either throw something too hard at them or too easy, whatever. Like, it lets you really gauge what they're capable of at the moment. In other games, you might need to pay attention to spell slots or whatever have you, but in Cypher System, the stats make a huge difference to basically every area of gameplay. So it's good to know what number, like actual numbers, they're sitting at. Again, when you're a newer GM, it sometimes doesn't matter too much, but either way, it's good to have that in mind so you can cater your encounters as you go.
Yeah, also too is when you know, like in the midpoint of most adventures, or at least I like to design adventures this way, where, usually my first encounter is something that should be bypassed rather easily. And then in the middle, I always like to have this like challenging encounter, or whether it doesn't have to be combat, but just a challenging encounter in general, right? And when you know what abilities and like what you said, what ciphers you have, you know how to design it so it's challenging enough that they have to exhaust some resources like ciphers, or that they have to spend XP to bypass this obstacle, right? And it's just easier to design and prep for when you have that information in front of you.
Absolutely. Like I said, all the points you guys are making are great. And in the same breath, I think that just having the information in general is like one of those things that's almost like a safety blanket, if you will, because, nobody has something that's a complete unknown, if you will. Like you said, we learned those lessons back in the day, especially like I said, second edition, you let a guy, they had the one section in the old book where you could make a character class. Mistake, and you just don't want to have that happen to yourself, playing Cypher.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, chat mentioned, I'm sorry, the chat is going a little fast, I'm sorry who said it, but someone mentions Cypher's so easy to design on the fly. Absolutely, but
Jeffrey and Baker.
Well, like with all improv, it's better to have the most knowledge or information in front of you in order to improvise better. So the more information you can have, the better it is as a whole on your improving on the fly. You want to go to the fourth one?
Yep, I was just about to go into it. So yeah, number 4 on our do list for new GMs in Cypher System. Remember that many rules in Cypher System are open to interpretation, so your first determination is not set in stone or wrong. You can always rule differently with the discussion with your players. Rulings over rules. And that's an important one. It was Gus earlier who said a lot of Cypher System is discussion. And it's a big part of it. Look, again, if you've read the rules are what, maybe 18, 20 pages, right? They're not super specific. So if there's an ambiguous situation, there's nothing wrong with either calling a rule at the moment and then discussing it later, or having a mini discussion with, as long as it doesn't break the flow of the game within the actual game, to settle on something that's, agreeable to everyone. But again, with Cypher, it's again, that discussion becomes a big part of it. So if you don't want to have the discussion in the middle of the game, because again, it might break the flow or whatever, you can always wait till afterwards and have that discussion, and then it could change going forward. Again, like we said in the little bullet point, nothing is set in stone. So if your ruling needs to change after your session, so be it. It's not the end of the world.
Like, that's my saying, rulings over rules, because that's the whole point. Right there in the game, you're the GM. Make a ruling, you let your players know, hey, listen, that's good. I'm going to call it like this, and we'll talk about it after the game, if that has to happen. Another thing is, like we said, the rules are open to interpretation. So if you decide that this is how it's going to flow in your game, how it best sits in your world, then it's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And most people who are into Cypher, like we are, we're not going to have a problem sitting at your table because you made a different determination than we did, because we know this is how it rolls in Cypher. And guess what? You're going to have fun with it. That's the big thing. Have fun with it, and don't get bogged down in the rules.
Yeah. Go ahead, Dean.
No, I'm done.
Especially with abilities, a lot of times it is an interpretation between how you view it, how the player views it, and how the table's gonna play it. And what I mean by that is you have a view in your head, and someone says, hey, I want to try to do this with this ability. And in your head you go, oh, that might not work. Then the player explains a little further, yeah, how about if I do spend an XP to do this? Or how about if I do it this way instead of the initial way I described it? You discuss between the two of you, you come up with a happy medium that you're both satisfied with, and then the whole table enjoys what happens, right? That's what I mean about interpretation. There's a discussion between the GM and the player. They figure out what works best for the group, what works best for the scene, and then after the session, right, you could once again meet up again and go, hey, that was cool what you did. Going forward, you could do that with that ability, right? And then after that fact, now it's established as canon that that's how your character's capable of doing that ability, right? It was just a discussion, and then there was a ruling made by the GM. The GM changed his mind after he saw it in practice, and that becomes canon.
Well, here you go, Anthony. I think old Gus said it even better than you, and he said it very concisely. He said, if you were a GM, the Cypher system wants you to unclench your butt. Whatever your first instinct is to say no, think again. It might be awesome. So I think he emphasized that with periods, unclench your and butt with an exclamation point.
True. It's okay if you rule something the first time, and then after the session is over and you think about it and you go, hey, you know what? I didn't like the way I ruled that. It's okay to tell the players, hey, I messed that one up. Going forward, when that situation comes up, this is the rule. This is the way we're going to do it. There's no there shouldn't be an issue. Like, no one's going to complain if you admit to either interpreting the rule the wrong way or seeking a better alternative for how to use a rule. So yeah, don't be scared to say, hey, I changed my mind. Next session we'll do it this way.
Yeah.
Or next time it comes up, we'll do it this way.
Before we jump on to the next one, I just want to shout out Aspiring Warlock. He said, as a player, I try to chat with my GM about creative ability usage before it even comes up. If I come up with a hypothetical, I let my GM know before it becomes an issue for them in game. First of all, that is absolutely awesomely considerate. But even better than that, that will give your GM fodder and cannon to build upon to give you the opportunity so we can see how this idea might work, what this hypothetical is. I know for me as a GM, when players come up with stuff, I always tell my players, be careful what you say because it just might happen. Don't joke at my Cypher table because you never know. We had a guy say, what if the room was filled with chlorine gas, and all the filters are expired? Okay, great. That was a great GMI, so just again, the spare work, that's pretty awesome, and I'm going to implement that. I'm going to make that suggestion to a lot of my players these days because that's really a good idea. Thank you.
I personally love players that do that because not only are they thinking in character and about their character, you could also say, hey, that's cool, but have you ever thought about using your ability this way? So you're also helping them adding, especially in the Supers game. Player ideas is players inputting their ideas. It only makes it better for a GM. You should never be afraid, or at least at the tables that I sit in, you should never be afraid as a player to want to pick your GM's brain, especially prior to the session starting.
Exactly. I agree 1,000%. So our next one is number 5 is be sure to utilize the many great tools Cypher System provides to all GMs if possible. The Cypher NPC asset and creature decks, pre-written adventures, Cypher shorts, character sheets, online generators, all are great resources that will practically eliminate prep time. And make sure, like we said earlier, get that campaign design sheet in the back of the book. They work wonders. They are great tools, even when you're designing a one-shot, but especially when you're designing a campaign. I can't speak enough for the fact that you have all of those things. But then, of course, you always have Cypher Unlimited too. Huh?
You didn't even finish the sentence. You started rambling off before you finished the advice sentence.
Eliminate prep time if you want. It will also help with spontaneous features you can add to a scene. Excuse me. But at any rate, like I said, use this stuff is great, and you always have Cypher Unlimited as well as another resource to help you get through these harrowing moments of getting a new game off the ground.
Also, if you're not good at improv, that's why all these tools are there for you. A creature deck. The decks are phenomenal. Period. I tend not to use the decks as much during the game, but for my prep, the decks are a much needed resource. I always look at the NPC decks. I always look at the creature decks, the Cypher decks. They all give me great, fantastic ideas. I love them to death. And pre-written adventures. If you can't think of something, grab a pre-written. It explains to you how the game is run. It gives you ideas going further. The Cypher shorts are also hella cool. They're like a condensed version of a pre-written adventure. You can't go wrong.
Yeah, and all the decks that Monty Cook Games makes and produces, they're all fantastic. Even if you're not going to use them for improv, like you just want to, before their game, like just by yourself, use it as prep, like just shuffle through the deck, pick a couple of cards, see what like pops into your head, or literally read every single card until something sparks. Like there's just so much you can do with all that material that saves you so much time, and it's fantastic.
I should have added the weird, because the weird works in any of these things. That's also another great resource. The weird is just a good book to sit there and read for ideas while prepping, or even having at your side during a game if you need to come up with a quick weird table or something interesting to add. So I should have added the weird into this list of Cypher System tools.
Yeah, I mean, and those are tools directly from Cypher System. But, as we're seeing in the chat, some people are bringing up other things, don't be afraid to borrow from other resources out there, other games. games that use charts and tables. Charts and tables would be your best friend for that prep that to get that game going as you need. And there's a lot of games out there. Morkborg comes to mind as a big one. I think Iron Sworn and Star Forge were mentioned in the chat. So yeah, just remember that there are resources out there to help you, and Cypher is flexible enough that you can implement them.
Yeah, and there's also great Cypher System online tools not created by Monica Games. The SRD sheet from Gus is one that comes to mind immediately. You'll be able to grab all the abilities, and it's a good resource to have, especially digitally on the fly. You can just pull it up during the middle of a game. I just want to touch back on the improv thing. These tools, like especially the decks, are great when you're improving a session or improving a scene, and you get that brain fart, your mind gets stuck, and you just need to grab something really. Yeah, I always have that. I have a ton of decks right in front of me, right? Ton of decks. You can just pull a deck out and just grab something, immediately, to spark your ideas, even if you're one of those straight improv guys that like to make everything up on the spot. The decks help you out a ton, and I couldn't not put the decks in this list because I think they've helped me out tremendously more than any other tool that MCG provides.
That is facts.
Yeah.
Chat seems to be agreeing with the deck one, and I'll read the last do tip we have here before we go into the don'ts. And the last one is, have your NPCs and adversaries use ciphers and artifacts during your combats to make your fights more interesting. I think I put this one in there because I've seen so many games where people say, hey, I have a hard time making my players use ciphers, right? Or the characters in the villains in the Cypher System book or whatever game setting book aren't very powerful. My characters run through them, in two rounds they ran through them. But that's because you're not fully utilizing what the characters can do. Why would you have a powerful wizard that doesn't have 3 or 4 ciphers, really powerful ciphers at hand to use against the players? If your players are not using their ciphers and hoarding them, have a 2-bit NPC that should be a walkover drop 2 ciphers on them consecutively back to back to show them, hey, this is how it should be done. I'm just gonna waste all my ciphers on you, and you have to deal with it. One is gonna show the players, oh shit, we gotta use our ciphers as well. And 2 is gonna make a really easy adversary into a really hard one, right? Have the NPCs use the ciphers. A great way of highlighting the Cypher system.
What you're saying, Anthony, I actually used that method with in Cypher. I gave these characters, I gave them 2 fire snares each. They were like a unit of men, and they were using the fire snares. They would throw these, they were like fire bolos, and they would, snap on you and burn you over time. But they were like four bandits. So when they finally defeated one, they found 2 left that they hadn't used. And then I did it again. I did it again with a different group, with a different cipher. So again, that was another way to show the players that, hey, ciphers are coming, but they couldn't keep them,
Jason and Jeff put up a great one. He said, have a thief NPC steal their ciphers and attack the PCs with their same ciphers. I love that. That is awesome. I'm definitely going to do that.
Yeah, that's going to be in my next one shot.
That is freaking phenomenal.
Wait, y'all haven't done that before?
No, not have them use the ciphers they had against them.
I mean, I think you're right. I don't think I've actually had, because I've had them stolen. I don't think I've actually had them used upon them, though.
That's my next one shot. I'm running a one shot Saturday. It's gonna be perfect. I'm running one shot with Pirates Saturday, so guess what? It's on.
Claire for Infinite Contract and say, hey Claire, we missed it. Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Yes, very nice to see Claire in the chat.
Yeah, that is a great one, Jason. I'm definitely stealing that one. Yeah, I've had NPCs steal stuff from the players, but never use the ciphers they stole against them. It was like,
that's definitely gonna happen.
You been holding that detonation cipher? Look, the first 5 seconds I have it, I'm throwing it at you.
It's a good one.
Yeah, just to go back to this, right? One, it could make your combats way more interesting. It beefs up the characters that if you're taking a villain from one of the books, it's a way of beefing those villains up to make the combat last longer, and more importantly, it shows the players that this is a living, breathing world, and these resources get used all the time by everyone, not only the players. So it's going to force them to want to use them themselves.
Yep. All right, you ready to move on to the don'ts?
Yeah, sure, why not?
Yeah. This is going to be the more fun section, I think. But yeah, let's go ahead and dive into the don'ts for new GMs. This number 1 of 6, and again, no particular order. Just we just put them up there. So for our first don't be afraid to make a mistake or ruling. There are really no wrong answers. You can always retcon or correct your decision with a properly placed cipher or intrusion. And it's freaking. We were saying it earlier, where there's a discussion to be had with rulings and blah blah blah. And if you feel like you made the wrong choice, there is absolutely nothing stopping you from going back and changing things. Whether it be just straight up saying, "Hey, I made a mistake. We're going to do it this way," or if you want to be a little more elegant or subtle about it, you can use ciphers or intrusions. Give them a cipher that'll help them with their troubles. Drop an intrusion, again, that helps them with their troubles. A GM intrusion does not always have to be a negative thing. You can use it to redirect the ship to where you need it to be. And yeah, there's something you gotta. I still suffer from this problem when I think about how I run certain mechanics. But then again, just GM intrusion, cipher, whatever have you, fixes the problem.
Hey, like I said, the prime example of that, I did that one time early on. I brutalized the party and used the GM intrusion, because I didn't know we all had to learn. I brutalized the party. They were down, like, their pools were ugly. And literally, the GM intrusion was that one of them during the combat set off a grenade and caused the ground to break away. When the ground broke away, they ended up, trapped in a medical facility. So everybody was able to get healed up and repaired, and go back and face the bad guy. And what I did was made the bad guy, not be able to heal because they were in his hideout, So just little things you learn, little ways to mitigate those mistakes. So yes, I think that's a great don't,
Claire brought up a good point. If you're unsure about a ruling, get a consensus from the party, from the table. Players sometimes have cool ideas. I always find that players have cooler ideas in the moment than you do. Not you particularly, Claire, but the GM does in the moment. A lot of times the players give me my best ideas. I always notice that when you say, hey, this is gonna happen. What's happening? They'll say something way worse than what you had in mind in the first place, or way more interesting than you had in mind in the first place. So always utilize and take the players into account, especially if you're unsure of a ruling. And just to go back to the other point, if you rule something wrong the first time, doesn't mean that has to become canon. You can always change your mind. Either whether you're using an intrusion or a cipher to do that, that's one thing. Or if you just want to flat out say, hey, I ruled that wrong the last time. Sorry, my bad. We're doing it this way. Let's move on. That's fine too.
Yep.
Dean's next.
Uh, don't feel pressure to read every single Cypher System book in order to get ready to play. All you need is some players and the core book in reality. I agree with this 1000%. Yes, because there are so many resources for Cypher, again, that choice paralysis. You don't put yourself into that. Don't even go through that. If you have a basic idea concept, grab the core book, go to the chapter on that particular genre, use the few little ideas that they put in there, or even grab a Cypher short. Grab a Cypher short off one of the free ones they got on the Monty Cook website, and go from there. Eventually, you'll learn how to, curate your resources.
When I put this on the list, I was so happy he did, because I think this is like one of the things that I see comes up all the time when you're talking to new GMs or new players, and they'll be like, hey, I want to run fantasy, but I'm waiting till I get Tolus, Godforsaken, Gods of the Fall, the Cypher Core book. They'll name like a list of 6 other books. Or I want to play Numenera, but all I have is Discovery and Destiny. That's all you need. You don't need every book to get started. Those other books are there after you started and you want to add additional ideas and content. The truth of the matter is, you don't even need the core book. You could just download the free, the free primer and get started with just that if you wanted to, or the starter set. Especially Numenera. The Numenera starter set is all you need to play. I really encourage most, like, if you're getting into Cypher System, Numenera, and this may sound awkward for somebody that buys every product, but I would rather you just buy this one product or get this free thing before you want to commit another several $100s, right? Find out if you like it first. Find out if you like Numenera. Find out if you like Godforsaken. Find out before you actually purchase the product.
Facts.
And I'll agree with Anthony 1000%, because when you talk about Numenera, I can go all the way back to before there was Numenera Discovery and Destiny, when there was just the Numenera rulebook. And there wasn't a lot of supplements, but what they gave you with inside that tome was so magnificent. It was so inspirational. You had enough to start a game. You had enough to start playing, and you could play for months. We were able to play for months until the next products came out, the first, supplemental books that came with it, and so on and so forth. I think that is the best don't in the world. Just get the one book and move forward.
The Cypher System core book will give you well over a year's worth of gameplay with just that one book.
Agreed.
I would say even more than that, because you can do so much. Like, you could play one game for a year, then you move on to another setting or another genre. But I was going to say 2 things regarding this. One was anecdote for me. Was the reason I put this on the list was when I was first starting out. Cypher core book, but then we saw Numenera, and Numenera had like 8-9 different like into the deep, into the outside, or whatever those books are called, and the character option books. And I was like, oh shit, and there's character options within those into the books. And in my mind I was like, oh, I only have the Cypher core book, I don't have all the character options, this sucks. But in reality, all that stuff is just extra, it's gravy. Like, with just the Cypher core book, you can do basically anything. And all those extras you see in the other books, just when you have the time, like, you don't need them to get started. I was of that mindset. It's like, oh, I don't have all the character options available for my players, this is gonna suck for them. But if we're not using those books, it's kind of moot. Like, you don't need them.
And
I just want to clarify something because I'm reading some of the comments in chat. We're not saying don't buy the other books. That's not what we're saying at all. What we're saying is that decide first whether you like it because it's for new GMs, right? Like, you don't need all those books to be your starting point, is what we're saying. Trust me, I own every book MCG has ever made. I'm not arguing about not buying the books. I'm saying that for a new GM, you don't need all those books to get started. I'm sorry if it was phrased wrong initially.
Yeah, I think, and I think, that's literally what we're all saying is that we just don't want people to think they have to have every book in order to play whatever genre they want to play. You can, as Al said, there's there's years of stuff within the Cypher System rulebook. I remember, like I said, when I first got Numenera, even before all the other books started coming out, like I said, I could have ran that for forever with just the inspirations within those pages. And then, of course, Discovery and Destiny and so on and so forth. So, yeah, get the other books. Trust me, get them. We want you to get them. We love to discuss all of them. We've read them.
What you call it? Do you have more to say? Sorry, I'm going to cut you off.
No, I'm done.
The second point I was going to say, which is hilarious, which considering what we just segued to, was if you're interested in Cypher System to try it, you don't have to buy any book. You can go with the SRD, the Seesaw, and if you want the pretty version, look at old Gus's SRD. It's literally everything without the art. Like, it's so good.
Go get the primer. Go get the free primer, which will explain it even easier.
I'm saying, whenever I want to look at the SRD, I look at Gus. It's just Gus's version. It's just way better to navigate. It's easier to read. I would highly recommend just use old Gus's version because it's a better version.
Yeah, it is quite a stellar tool. If you have not seen it, go look at it.
It is aesthetic.
I'll say one other thing though. You don't even need to buy any books. You can just go to the Cypher Unlimited Discord server, and I'll guarantee you, whatever game you want to try out, if you ask hard enough and you look around, someone will be willing to run it for you and explain how to play the game. So if you just want to see how the Cypher system works or how a particular setting works, I'm pretty sure you could go to the Cypher Unlimited Discord. I think the three of us know a little bit about that Discord. You might be able to find a game that you're looking for and test drive it out if you wanted to.
It's a small possibility.
Yeah. All right, so did we break down this one? Should I go to the next one?
I think you're good.
Yeah.
All right, so this is I think Dean put this one now. Like, don't feel the need to control every single aspect of the narrative. Cypher System allows players to control aspects of the narrative, lean into it, and let them shape the story.
I'm actually the one who wrote that one.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No biggie. I'll piggyback off since I'm the one who wrote it. This has been a big part of the discussion, like this whole discussion, but discussion is a big part of Cypher System. And not only that, again, there's what is it, non-mechanical way, just straight up talking to people, but Cypher System itself has mechanics built in to let the players affect the narrative, whether it be rolling a natural 20 or using a player intrusion or whatever have you. Lean into it. I forget, it was Gus who said it, unclench your butt. Like, Cypher System is giving you that means to take some of that load off of your own mind. You don't need to have every single aspect of the story set in your mind. Let the player set up some of it. And Cypher makes it super duper easy to do that. Just plain and simple.
I'm gonna, say it this way. It's when I play a game or run a game, I want my players to feel like they're the heroes of the story. This gives them investiture. This gives them the ability to know that what they say, means something, in the overall narrative. And I love that aspect of Cypher System. It's a reason why a lot of games that are IPs I don't like to run. Like I don't want to run the One Ring because the greatest story for that world has already been told. I mean, I really like things that are open ended. I like things that give me the possibility to make my players feel like they're this is it. This is where we want to be, And I think Cypher System gives you that in the sense that you do allow the players to take control of the narrative in different places. They get to tell you what their abilities and powers look like. They get to, poke and prod the story in a meaningful and effective way, impactful way.
I think it's mechanically though. It's not like everything you're describing could be issued in any role playing game, but I think that Cypher System itself, with the player intrusions, with the mechanics, it's a shared narrative, and I 100% agree with this advice, but I feel for the players coming from other systems that aren't the Fates of the world, that aren't the, Blades in the Dark, aren't the Cypher Systems in the world, because this isn't a skill that is taught to many GMs outside of narrative RPGs. A lot of other RPGs is designed with the GM controlling the narrative and allowing the players to add to the narrative when they feel like it's necessary, right? But Cypher System is designed to allow the players to take control of the narrative without the GM's permission, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
Am I losing you? Because I see both your guys' faces like looking at me a little weird. So
I'm nodding my head. I agree with you.
I don't blame players for it taking them some time to get a hold of this concept if they never played any of those games. It's like what Dean says, you gotta change your mindset.
You gotta shift that paradigm.
And one thing, you said it, but one thing, that is something I do. I don't do it as much nowadays, but when I was first starting and playing with friends, not really too much strangers, though I did do it a couple times with strangers, but either way, I'll straight up let them, like, it's not even through the mechanics, it's like to get them accustomed to doing things, like, hey, we ran into, there's an NPC approaching, or like it's an NPC, it's an important one, whatever, but they tell me the name, they tell me what the NPC looks like, right? I let them shape that. It's a minor detail, it's not going to change my story, really. It's just lets them name, and that's an easy way to let them ease into making those choices. Just let them flavor something that doesn't have to have any impact on the story. Just let them flavor some stuff, and that's a great way to let them ease into actually impacting the narrative with their choices.
Yeah, I think, and this is applicable to players as well, because I think players are not accustomed to using player intrusions. So when you have a table, right, with a new GM and 5 new players to the Cypher System, let me ask you a question. If you had to bet, right, what would your bet be of how many player intrusions would happen in a session like that? A new GM and 5 new players. How many times do you think a player intrusion would happen in a session?
Or how many likely? The only way I would say we would have any option of having it happen is if all those players came from narrative-based games. If they came from like PBTA and Fate and so on and so forth, they would see that player intrusion. It would make sense to them. But if we're talking about just new players in general, you're going to get a big ass goose egg.
And it really depends on how much the new GM read the book, right? Because I know when I first started, I didn't even read the book. I went off how Anthony was running it. That's literally how I learned how to play. And again, player intrusions weren't a thing at the time, though we did use them. If the new GM read the book well enough, they could be like, hey, you guys are sitting on some XP, why doesn't someone try a player intrusion? And then of course that would change the number from 0 to 1 at least, but it's up to that new GM to have it on their mind in the first place.
So I've been using a new technique, guys. when I make up character sheets now for my one shots, I put the suggested player intrusions on their page. So they look at me, what's this? And I tell them, hey, you can give me an experience point and do this in game, you know. And I give them the option, you know, tell them you can move a little bit of flexibility, but try to keep it in the same venue as what you see these player intrusions looking like.
That's a good idea, Dean. I'm stealing that.
Please do, man. It's been working out good.
Someone made a good point. As Barbara Warlock said, they would also know to use player intrusions if they've watched Cypher actual plays where people have used intrusions. Which again, new people who are brand new to a game or something, they'll watch stuff first, and that's a very accurate point. If they've seen it happen, it'll be in their mind.
Oh, I don't know if you remember this, but you remember your very first Cypher System session, your very first session. It was a cool game, and afterwards you asked me, oh, how was the game? I was like, yo, it was cool, but you didn't do any GM intrusions? You remember that?
I don't, but that sounds accurate.
And you was like, oh shit, I did.
I mean, there's even games in recent history where I didn't do any GM intrusions and I only realized after the fact. This is like maybe last year even. Like it just happened.
Infinite Casual Claire stated, she said physical tokens for XP also help make them stand out. And I would say that would be a good idea. Yeah. So they have XP, and and like I said, I do that all the time. I have dragon coins and stuff like that I use for XP at the table, depending on what games we play. So yeah, great point. Just wanted to say that.
Yeah. So yeah, it definitely this happens. This is one of the don'ts that I think takes a little learning, and. Like I said earlier, I don't think it's necessarily the fault of the GM or the players. It's just getting used to playing a different style of game, a narrative game. So I think it's the best advice we probably put in this entire show, but it's something that I don't blame people for not knowing, because you have to play in narrative games in order to grasp this concept.
Most definitely.
Oh, who's reading the fourth one?
I think it's on me now.
That would be Al.
All right, this is a good one. This is a real good one. We touched on this in a couple of videos. But either way, never have a GM intrusion negate the actions of a player or a player's contributions to a scene or a player intrusion. And that's vital, because that's, again, GM intrusions are meant to be, they're described in the book as like a negative thing or whatever have you. But if the players are successful at something, or if they did a player intrusion to do something that you weren't expecting and that kind of throws a wrench in your plans or ideas in your head, it is a super big jerk move to say, oh, here's a GM intrusion that actually didn't happen, or that actually failed because of whatever. Like, that is it's a beyond horrible feeling. I've never had it happen to me, but just theoretically in my mind, if I did something cool and the GM was like, actually, GM intrusion, that you tripped and doing your cool backflip and you busted your head open, like, that's a horrible feeling. Like, and again, I don't know how often this happens, because I've never had it happen to me and I've never done it.
This is a pet peeve of mine. I absolutely hate this. If the players accomplish something, or first of all, let's just go. I know we did a GM intrusion episode a couple weeks ago, but GM intrusion is not negative. It's a change in the narrative, right? So let's get that out first and foremost, right? And second, it's not a GM intrusion is not meant to take away something cool the players have done from them. That's not what it's there for. It's there to change the flow, the scene, the pace, the tone of the scene that you're currently in, right? It's to change, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. It's just to change the scene. I cannot stand with a passion if the players bypass a GM's obstacle or idea that they thought was hella cool in their mind, that their way of going, oh, okay, I got you, is I'm just going to do a GM intrusion and erase what you just spent the last 20 minutes working on. It just annoys the crap out of me. I'm sorry, I'm mad.
I listen. I can't say it enough. That's a dick move.
Yeah.
You know, I mean that's literally what it is. That's bullshit. You know, because that just shows you have no integrity as a GM.
And that also implies for player intrusions. And I'm gonna put it so simple, right? Say a player, we'll come up with just a random. There's the player's trying to scale a cliff, right? And the GM says it's slippery because it just snowed and it's hard to scale. And the player says, "Hey, can I waste a player intrusion to put these spikes on my shoes to help give me an asset on climbing?" And then the player makes the roll, right? If you didn't want the player to do that in the first place, you shouldn't have accepted the XP for the intrusion, right? So why would you use an intrusion to stop them from making it after they wasted a resource?
Right. I mean, that's what I'm saying. You know, again, intrusions shouldn't be. They shouldn't be, like you said, it just shouldn't be a negative. You know, I literally had a guy at a table, you know, we were going through and we had the players, they beat the big bad, the whole nine. And one of the players in his last action rolled a one, and he was going to make the GMI that the player's own Cypher came out and healed the bad guy. No, that would have been like, I was like, no, we don't do stuff like that, you know. But he was coming from D&D, and he had to screw the player mentality. So, you know.
Yeah, essentially, intrusions shouldn't negate past actions. That's
Correct.
the best way to put it. You could still complicate things, but you still have to allow them to have the success they had in that scene.
Yep.
So this next one is probably just goes right in line with what we were just talking about. Next thing is, don't try to force GMIs because you feel the need to hit a certain number of them per session. Less GMIs is better than bad GMIs. So that really makes a lot of sense in this respect. Let's just say let's say you prepped your GMIs. They were supposed to happen in specific places, but the flow of the game went a little bit different. The players did something odd. So what if that GMI could no longer apply because the players went in the opposite direction or something? You know, you wouldn't want to just force something upon them that makes no meaning, that has no meaning, because GMI should have some meaning to the narrative as well.
I fall victim to this many times, especially in con games where like I want every player to get GMIs because I want to highlight the mechanic, right? But then after a while, the session, like the scene doesn't warrant a GMI, but I'll look at the table and I'll be like, oh, Dean hasn't gotten one yet. We got 30 minutes left. Hey, Dean, you found this cool thing and it doesn't add anything to the story. And after I do it, I'll be like, why the hell I did that? It didn't add anything to the story. I just gave him a GMI for the sake of giving him a GMI.
Right. And when you think about it, and you doing something like that, that could also be something that could offset the game. That extra XP could cost, could cost you something later on. So it's those things that you got to think about. Dreaming about, be quiet.
Jason, here's your GMI. This one time at Bad Cap.
What was I gonna say? And I lost my train of thought. The band cap and he talking to the dog. What was I gonna? Yeah, it's like we're all saying here. If you have like set in your mind that you want to do a certain number of GMIs, that's kind of a bad way to approach it, right? We've had this question come up a bunch. Like, how many GMIs should you do per session? Like what's a good number? Blah blah blah. The general guideline is one per player, something like that. But even
one group.
Yeah,
it's usually the guideline that most people follow.
But even that guideline, right? Like, you don't have to force that, right? If nothing comes up from one of the players because, nothing organically, made it happen, there's no need to force it on that player just because you felt like you need to hit the one for the session for them specifically. Because, again, that can lead to awkward or inorganic situations where, if it doesn't make sense for the situation, just let it go.
And I would say, right? How about the players are doing a bunch of intrusions and changing the direction of scenes, and the pace is going from slow to fast. You guys are really in a rhythm as a group, right? And you've already exhausted what your quote-unquote quota of GMIs is. Who's to say you can't add more? So it works the other way around as well. Like, some characters might, with their actions in the narrative and the way they approaching the shared story, might warrant you to give them another GMI because they adding so much interesting aspects into the narrative that it sparks ideas in your head to change the direction of the way the story is going.
Exactly.
Big facts. I hadn't even considered that reversed situation where it definitely makes sense. You throw more in there if you didn't have them planned. If it makes sense, if it helps the narrative, if it makes sense, throw more in there than you planned to. Why not?
Yeah, you brought up a good point about the sweet spot for GMIs, and I've always said I've always gave that cookie cutter answer, but I think going forward, I'm gonna say, hey, look, this is what the baseline I usually do, but it's not etched in stone. At the end of the day, it's really the flow and pace of the narrative, the flow and the pace.
It's really what the story warrants. It's really what the story warrants. I mean, because like you said, that's a good idea. Because I had kind of flipped mine over. The one thing I do try to do is try to get one group GMI in. I try, but sometimes, like you said, it just doesn't warrant it. I mean, and I actually had that happen in a one shot that I did not have a single GMI. The story just flowed, did not need it. The players were on point, the rhythm was right. So, yeah.
Do you prep GMIs?
Not often. It really depends. Like, for some one shots, I will have certain GMIs. Like I have a GMI I like to use, a group GMI I like to use in a couple of fantasy games. But not often.
The reason why I say that is I don't often, but I always notice, like when I run con games or read pre-written adventures, there's a ton of prepped GMIs. And 9 out of 10 times, I always find a way to fit those in. So that tells me that maybe I should prep a GMI or two, or at least have it in my head,
Yeah, I also do not have them prepped or in my mind. It would be a good practice, but you know us, we're improv guys, so it's not super. If you're strong in the improv department, not super necessary to prep the GMIs. But again, for new GMs, if something you struggle with, prep some.
And what Anthony was saying though, that's the other side of the coin. Most of the time, if we're being improv, if we're running something, a lot of times we're running this, whatever it is, for the first time, and it might be the only time we run it.
Mm-hmm.
But, if you're looking at it through the lens of what he was saying about the cons and stuff like that, if you look at all the pre-made adventures and, the instant adventure books and so on and so forth, they all have suggested GMIs. No matter, so when you write something down, if it's something you're going to use over and over again, it is a good idea to have some suggested GMIs. It's a good idea to have those things prepped, because now you can be in that flow and you already got an idea of what this world is going to hold and what GMIs can look like and so on and so forth in this particular adventure. So I think that's where the prepping comes in, as opposed to that first time run, because I've actually done it. That's why I have a couple of standardized GMIs, because players and the way the game flowed, and it was like, oh, this is just a great GMI. I need to use this again.
Yeah, you know what? I've done that before. If I run a game and I improv a GMI that turns out to be like really cool, I'll save that in the memory bank to be like, oh, I'm gonna use this again if I'm running the same genre or the same adventure.
Right.
You know, some people in chat, Charlie wrote, I use the GMI deck, which is we spoke about that earlier, is another great resource. Chat, anybody else using, does anyone else prep GMIs? I'm just wondering. I want to know what the group consensus is. We have like 30 people in here.
A bunch of people were saying that they do prep some. I like what Gus said. Gus said, I prep GMIs for locations, important creatures. It's just hanging gravity. I assume maybe he meant gravy. But either way, you don't use them all, but sometimes it's nice to have a well-stocked bar to reach for.
Oh, now I want gravy.
But yeah, that is an excellent tip. Like, if you don't want to, prep specific GMIs for the characters or whatever have you, the players, have them set for the locations or the creatures or whatever. I love that idea. That's a great way to prep GMIs. If you're going to prep them.
I like what Charlie said. He said he does. No, I'm sorry. That Charlie Jason. He said his GM prep is a single sentence, but he interprets how it acts out, how it plays out. He improvs it. I think that's a good piece of information too. That's really cool.
I think consensus is most people prep. Jack doesn't prep, but most people seem to prep.
Yeah. Claire says sometimes their ultimate decisions of mine.
Which is actually a good way of thinking. Jack, well, I tend to know spots where GMIs will occur, sort of like how you plant traps. You know when someone will trigger a story event. Yeah, Jack, I think I'm in the same boat as you. Like, I'll know in my head where's the good spot for a GMI, but I don't necessarily think of the GMI.
See, that's what I'm saying. With the fantasy game, that's why I have that exactly. There's a specific place in the story that this GMI can happen, to certain conditions. It works out. I think it's pretty cool that we even are all seeing that.
All right,
and
so
when I dig us into the last one, then I think this is probably my favorite, is what I was talking about earlier.
It's me to ask, or was it?
That's you.
Okay. Don't make your NPCs more important to the story than the actual players. Amen. They should feel like the heroes of the narrative. This happens a lot. This is not a Cypher System problem. This is just a GM advice problem that, I always told a funny story. I've said this story multiple times, but I like telling this story because to me it's hilarious. When I took like a 10-year hiatus from role-playing games, just, adult stuff, getting married, finding a career, working, establishing myself. So I took a 10-year break. So like 15 or so years ago, when I wanted to start getting back into role-playing, the only place I knew was Roll20, right? So I applied for some random 4th edition game, whatever it was. And I got into a group, it was a bunch of randos for me, right? And I knew I was in problems, and I knew that this was like a bad experience when the person had a full party, but they had 3 NPCs with the full party. So there were 7 people in the party, and every fight scene, our characters did absolutely nothing. And his 3 NPCs, like, always killed the big bad, always saved the person that needed to be saved. So we were literally we were like the Star Trek guys with the red suit in the backdrop that would get dropped. And I thought this was so hilarious. It's like, why the hell did we even show up? And I proceeded to tell the person at the end of the session, like, when he was like, "Oh, hey, you had a good time," I said, to be quite honest, I felt like you didn't need any of us because you were playing with yourself.
Exactly.
Oh, and he only had dialogue in between. He was having dialogue with himself and other NPCs, and it was just hilarious.
He was doing 2 conversations at once. That's great. But see, but see, that's my point, and I think that's why, like I said earlier, I don't like the big names like that because the greatest story has already been told. You know, but I think Bright Crazy Star said earlier that they would like to see us do parodies, which we've done, like Clean Up in Sector 57. you know.
If you go to our YouTube channel, we have quite a few parodies up.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. We do our parodies, and that's what I'm saying. If you want to, recast the major characters in a story and just see how it unfolds with your players, that's one thing. But
playing in the Star Wars universe, the Lord of the Rings universe, because you could still, like, I don't mind not being the focal point of the overall narrative of a story. What I don't like is that in the particular story that you're telling, you're not the focal point of that. Like you don't have to be Luke Skywalker to have an interesting Star Wars session.
I guess Star Wars and Star Trek are kind of anomalous because both of them you can literally play with. I can go to a different era, whatever the case may be. You could do it that way, or like you said, I mean, you could tell the Rogue One story. There, you're not Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, but Rogue One was a good story. So yes, I say it like that. But like to me, Lord of the Rings, it's one of those things that just don't work. But like I said, we all agree the NPCs should not be more important than the player characters.
Al, you was gonna say something, so you was getting ready to.
No. Just your story's hilarious and fun. Thankfully, I haven't really encountered this much myself. Being how little I play, especially with strangers, I have not encountered the all-powerful, GM NPC or GMPCs or whatever the people call them. However, there was one time, and I think you were in the game too, Anthony. We played, this was years ago, like when Cypher Unlimited first started. I think it was Numenera, or it was definitely a similar setting where it's like, old tech, exploring a ruin, whatever. And the GM, I'm not gonna name names, had like an NPC, robot kind of, like an AI in the system. And it was kind of like directing us and telling us exactly where to go. And like when we try to make a decision, the computer would be like, you probably shouldn't go that way. Like that was as close as I've gotten to like being with like a GMPC, and that was pretty annoying. I will say that.
Yeah, it was a hell of a railroad.
Yeah, it was.
That was a railroad that had rails that you couldn't escape. Like
it wasn't a roller coaster.
Every time you try to use a a player intrusion or anything to get out of a railroad, that computer was. It was like playing what do you call it? What the hell? Now I'm getting a brain fart. The one with the game with the mother computer with the.
Oh, Paranoia.
It was like playing Paranoia because the computer didn't allow us to do anything.
Yes.
Yeah, it was a bit crazy to say the least.
Yeah, it was. I personally think that I don't like having. If I have an NPC that travels with the group, that NPC has a specific job, and I usually have an NPC to travel with the group to put them in danger, to allow the players to be heroic.
Like I said, I think you and me have had this discussion before. My NPCs are normally the complications to the narrative, so sometimes I don't even have to use a GMI because the NPC is already there to get in trouble, to cause, like you said, to bring the players into action, to let them shine, or like I said, they're going to be, if they are there, they're there to be an asset versus the answer.
Yeah, it's never good if the NPC is the one charging into battle. Unless you want to put them at danger, you want the players to follow that person. If like they're being indecisive and you need to have the story moving forward, then you could just have the NPC charge head first. But that doesn't mean that they're gonna defeat the big bad. You know,
I ran a cyberpunk one shot last weekend, and I actually had an NPC literally was just an asset. He was a physical asset that the one hacker could use in order to, but he could only use him like, once a day or something that he could use to help him hack something. So, he's a part of it. He was an asset to the story, but he was not the focal point. He wasn't making or breaking the action.
yeah. Yeah, I tend on a full party. I tend to have NPCs come in and out of the story, but I could definitely see having one or two players and they traveling with one or two NPCs because you just need to cover, like you said, cover all the cover abilities that they might not be capable of, and you could use NPCs to do that. Oh yeah, the too many followers. Even the too many followers, we actually use that in our Star Wars game. The too many followers is a great foci where there's a ton of NPCs, but even them, I always just put them in danger to allow, to force the player to, to what you call it, interact with the scene.
That was pretty fun.
But yeah, I think guys, we exhausted our do's and don'ts list. If you have that you would like to add, please add them in chat. Or if you're watching on YouTube, please put it in the comment section. Let us know. What do you think about our list? Do you like our do's and don'ts, or are they some you would take out, some you will replace? And let us know in the comment section on our YouTube video, and let us know in the chat here. It'll be greatly appreciated.
And the other thing is, a lot of things that we said could be applied to other games as well. Let this broaden your horizon, and as you step out here into the realm of GMs, and we can only get better together. So that's what we're here for. Thanks for watching tonight.
If you like us and you like what we do, join the Cypher Unlimited Discord server for all things Money Cook Games. Did I jump into my spiel too quick, Al?
Just a little bit. I just want to say someone put a really good don't in the chat just as a quick side off. Jack One Spade said, if you give someone a pet, don't give it to them just to kill it when it gets complicated. Like, that is the worst feeling, to get a nice pet, or people will say boblin to goblin, I guess is like the meme. Don't give them a boblin just to kill them when it gets complicated. That's such a messed up feeling.
What I do is to bribe your GM, or at least give them feedback instead of just, it's all right.
Yes.
Yeah, that's another one. Yeah, but that's also a touchy one. You have to know the GM, because I've also seen some GMs that they ask for feedback, but they really don't want feedback. They want you to tell them that they're great. So when you do give them feedback, it becomes a freaking argument that I like, especially if this is just another tangent, but especially if I'm not going to ever play with you again, right? I'm not going to get in an argument over something that, like, dude, this session was horrible. You're never going to see me again. We're two ships passing, passing in the sea. So I'm just going to walk away and not tell you anything.
We remember that guy at Gen Con?
Yeah. Deuces.
He was so mad.
Before I go in my spiel, check it out, guys. I have a Station 151 shirt for those that don't know. That's Bear Waiter, is the creative director for Money Cook Games. Him and three of his friends have a super phenomenal podcast. You can catch it on any podcatcher. It's essentially horror, sci-fi, and suspense all boiled up into one. If you have a chance, go check out Station 151 or see the interview we have with them on our channel. They'll greatly appreciate it, and it's a wonderful show. They started their second season about a month ago, so it's not too late to catch up on everything. And Bear sent me this awesome t-shirt. I just want to say thank you. I was going to put the link. If you like us and you like what we do, join the Cypher Unlimited Discord server for all things Money Cook Games. We have the largest fan-run Discord server for everything MCG. You can talk about games, chat about games, play games. Yes, you don't have to buy books. I'm pretty sure you can go over there and learn the Cypher System and play games and go there. But if Discord's not for you, join our Facebook group. It's not as big as our Discord, but we still have great conversations being had here. give us a follow here on Twitch or even a sub if you can. Or go to our YouTube channel and like, share, and subscribe there. We're trying to grow both platforms, and it'd be greatly appreciated if you helped us out either way. You want to help us out financially in some way, because you like us, you hate us, or whatever. We have a Patreon set up. Give us a little donation on Patreon, or go to our Cypher Unlimited online store and pick up some cool Cypher Unlimited merch, like the shirt Dean got on or the hat I got on. Last but not least, we love you.
So it's coffee, not Patreon.
It's not Patreon. It's coffee.
You know why I just said that? Because right before I met up with you guys, I donated on Patreon, and I was thinking, man, we need to set up a Patreon.
Yes. But either way, coffee is what we have set up currently. Links are in the chat. Links will be in the description on YouTube. And any last thoughts before I close this out, guys?
Great chat.
Yeah, this is an awesome chat. Thank you guys so much for coming by. Hopefully we helped people who are coming into Cypher System, new GMs, new players. Hopefully this fed your intellect a little bit and you have a better mindset for going into your first games. And yeah, as usual, from us at the CU, we will see you later.
Bye, guys.